My wife and stepson cheated on me. When I learned the truth, I threw them out of my life. Hello, my name is Brian, and I live in the United States of America. 12 years. That's how long I've been with Sarah. 12 years of building what I thought was an unshakable foundation, a life together that would withstand any storm. In those 12 years, I became a father figure to her son, Charles, who was just 7 when I first met him. I was there for his first home run, his first heartbreak, his high school graduation. I loved that kid like my own flesh and blood. Or at least I thought I did. In retrospect, the warning signs were flashing like neon billboards, but I chose to look the other way. My dedication to making our unconventional family work blinded me to the reality that was unfolding right under my nose. I was too busy being the provider, the rock, the steady hand that kept our ship sailing smoothly through life's choppy waters. Our Connecticut home was the envy of our friends. A beautiful 2-story house with a lawn I made a point of keeping immaculate. Sarah had excellent taste, and I spared no expense in creating the perfect nest for us. The kitchen was her domain: granite countertops, professional-grade appliances, and a wine refrigerator that was always stocked with her favorite Chardonnay. The living room featured a fireplace that I made sure was roaring during those brutal winters, and the master bedroom had a balcony that overlooked the backyard. It was a beautiful life, at least on the surface. But beneath that polished exterior, cracks were forming. Charles, now 19, and in his first year at a prestigious university, had grown increasingly distant. Not in the typical way teenagers disconnect from their parents, but in a calculated, almost hostile manner. His eyes would narrow when I entered a room. His responses to my questions became monosyllabic. If I suggested something, anything, his immediate reaction was resistance. "Charles, have you thought about which classes you're taking next semester?" I asked one evening over dinner. He stabbed at his steak. "Why do you care?" "Because I'm interested in your education," I replied, maintaining my composure. "And because I'm paying for it." "Anyone?" "Yeah. Well, no one asked you to," he muttered. Sarah immediately jumped to his defense. "Brian, he's under a lot of pressure. First year of college isn't easy." This was our dance. I would attempt to establish some form of connection or authority. Jason would reject it, and Rebecca would mediate in his favor. Every single time. "Rebecca, he's 19 years old," I said, my patience wearing thin. "He can't speak to me like I'm some stranger who wandered in off the street." "He's still adjusting," she insisted, her hand reaching across the table to rest on his. "Aren't you, sweetie?" The look they exchanged sent a chill down my spine. It wasn't a mother comforting her son. It was conspiratorial, as if they shared a secret that I wasn't privy to. I pushed the thought away. I was being paranoid. The stress of my job as a corporate lawyer was getting to me. 80-hour work weeks would make anyone see things that weren't there. But the incident that really set the wheels in motion happened on a cold Tuesday night in November. I had just returned from a business trip to New York, exhausted but eager to be home. I expected Rebecca to be waiting for me, perhaps with a glass of wine and that smile that still made my heart race after all these years. Instead, the house was quiet. Too quiet. I found her in our bedroom, sitting on the edge of the bed, her phone clutched in her hand. She startled when I entered, quickly locking the screen. "Brian, I didn't hear you come in." "Clearly," I said, setting down my suitcase. "Everything okay?" "Of course," she said, but her smile didn't reach her eyes. "How was your trip?" "Productive, exhausting, the usual." I leaned in to kiss her, but she turned her head slightly and my lips grazed her cheek instead. "Where's Jason?" "Study group," she replied, standing up. "He's been working so hard lately." I nodded, pretending to believe her. But as I unpacked my suitcase, I noticed something on the dresser that didn't belong. A man's watch, not mine. It was expensive. Rolex, if I had to guess, and definitely new. "What's this?" I asked, picking it up. Rebecca's face paled. "Oh, that's Jason's. A gift from his grandfather." "His grandfather has been dead for 5 years," I said flatly. "From before," she stammered. "He just found it recently." I turned the watch over in my hand. The back was inscribed, "To Mark, with all my love." "Mark?" I questioned. "Who the hell is Mark?" It's a vintage piece," Rebecca said, snatching it from my hand. He bought it at a pawn shop. The inscription was already there. The lie was so transparent, so insulting to my intelligence, that for a moment I couldn't speak. I just stared at her, this woman I'd shared my life with for 12 years, as she avoided my gaze. "Rebecca," I finally said, my voice dangerously calm, "do you think I'm an idiot?" "Nathan, please. Is there someone else?" "No," she protested, too quickly. "How can you even ask me that?" "Because there's a strange man's watch in our bedroom," I said, my voice rising despite my efforts to control it. "Because you flinched when I tried to kiss you. Because there's a goddamn inscription with another man's name on it." "You're overreacting," she insisted, her voice taking on that placating tone she used when she thought I was being unreasonable. "It's exactly what I said it is." I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to believe her. But the seed of doubt had been planted, and it would grow into something far more devastating than I could have imagined. The next few weeks were a study in careful observation. I noticed the small things, how Rebecca was suddenly protective of her phone, the way she would step outside to take certain calls, her vague explanations for late nights out. Work events became her go-to excuse, though she'd been a real estate agent for years and had never been this busy before. Jason's behavior shifted as well. He was still distant with me, but he and Rebecca seemed to have developed a new closeness. They would stop talking when I entered a room, exchange meaningful glances over dinner, and sometimes I'd catch them whispering together in the kitchen. I considered confronting them, demanding the truth, but something held me back. Perhaps it was fear of what I might discover, or maybe it was the stubborn hope that I was imagining things, that our family wasn't unraveling before my eyes. Then came the invitation. "I've been thinking," Rebecca announced over breakfast one Saturday. "We should take a trip during Jason's winter break." "That sounds nice," I said cautiously. "Where were you thinking?" "Vermont," she replied. "There's this lovely cabin near Stowe. Very private, great skiing." "I didn't know you were into skiing," I remarked. Rebecca had always preferred beaches to mountains. "Well, I thought it might be nice to try something different," she said, not meeting my eyes. "Jason's friend Tommy has a family cabin there that he said we could use." "Tommy," I frowned. "I don't think I've met him." "He's new," Jason interjected. "Transfer student. Cool guy." Something about his tone made me suspicious. "So this cabin, it would be just us?" "Well," Rebecca hesitated. "Tommy mentioned he might be there too, and maybe a couple of his friends. But it's a big place, plenty of room for everyone." The alarm bells in my head were deafening. "Let me get this straight. You want us to spend Jason's winter break in a cabin with a bunch of college students we don't know?" "It's not like that," Rebecca insisted. "Tommy is mature for his age, and his friends are nice." "How do you know?" I challenged. "Have you met them?" Rebecca and Jason exchanged a look that confirmed my suspicions. This wasn't a spontaneous idea. This was planned, and I wasn't part of the plan. "Actually," I said, making a split-second decision, "I can't take time off in December. End of year is too busy at the firm." "We could go without you," Jason suggested, a little too eagerly. "No," Rebecca said quickly, shooting him a warning glance. "It wouldn't be the same without Nathan. We'll plan something else." The relief in her voice was palpable, and it broke my heart. She didn't want me to go. She was looking for an excuse to be away from me with Jason, in a secluded cabin with this mysterious Tommy and his friends. That night I couldn't sleep. The thought of Rebecca, my Rebecca, betraying me was unbearable, and Jason's involvement made it even worse. What kind of son would conspire with his mother to deceive the man who had raised him for the past 12 years? I waited until Rebecca was deeply asleep, then carefully extracted her phone from the nightstand. She had changed her passcode, but after a few attempts, I guessed it. 0424. Jason's birthday. The irony wasn't lost on me. The evidence was right there in her messages. Hundreds of texts to someone saved as T, intimate, explicit messages that made my stomach churn. Plans for their Vermont getaway, which was clearly intended to be a romantic rendezvous, not a family vacation. And most disturbing of all, messages about me, how they would handle the Nathan situation, how they needed to be more careful. But the real shock came when I opened her email. There in her inbox was a confirmation for a hotel reservation in Stowe, Vermont. The reservation was under the name Mark Thompson. Mark, the name on the watch. I scrolled through more emails, my hands shaking. There were exchanges between Rebecca and this Mark. Love letters, essentially. He wrote about their future together, about how much he missed her when they were apart, about how he couldn't wait to make it official. I went and then I found it. A photo attached to one of the emails. Rebecca, Jason, and a man I didn't recognize. Tall, silver-haired, distinguished-looking, standing in front of a Christmas tree. They were smiling, arms around each other, like a perfect family portrait. The date stamp on the photo was from the previous December, when I had been on a business trip to Chicago. The betrayal was so complete, so meticulously orchestrated, that I felt physically ill. I barely made it to the bathroom before emptying the contents of my stomach into the toilet. When I returned to the bedroom, Rebecca was still asleep, her face peaceful, innocent. I looked at her, really looked at her, and wondered how much of our life together had been a lie. Had she ever loved me? Or was I just a convenient provider, a placeholder until something better came along? I didn't confront her that night. I needed time to think, to plan my next move. This wasn't just about a cheating spouse. This was about a coordinated deception involving her son, my stepson, and this Mark character who had apparently been in their lives for some time. The next morning, I pretended everything was normal. I kissed Rebecca goodbye, wished Jason good luck on his exam, and headed to work like it was any other day. But inside, I was seething, my mind racing with questions and scenarios. I called my old college roommate, Derek, who had become a private investigator in the years since graduation. I needed answers, and I needed them fast. "Nate, buddy," Derek said when we met for lunch at a discreet bar downtown. "You look like hell." "I feel like it," I admitted, then proceeded to tell him everything I discovered. Derek listened without interruption, his expression growing grimmer by the minute. When I finished, he sighed heavily. "I'll help you," he said, "but you need to prepare yourself. In my experience, what you found is probably just the tip of the iceberg." He was right, of course. Within a week, Derek had compiled a dossier that would have made the CIA proud. Mark Thompson was a cardiologist at Massachusetts General Hospital, divorced, wealthy, and, according to Derek's sources, had been seeing Rebecca for at least 2 years. 2 years, I repeated numbly when Derek delivered his report. "That's impossible. I would have known." "People see what they want to see," Derek said gently. "And from what my contacts at the hospital say, they haven't exactly been discreet. Staff there knows her as his girlfriend. And Jason, how does he fit into this?" Derek hesitated. "That's where it gets weird. Jason has been presenting Mark as his father to his friends at BU. Not his stepfather, his actual father." The betrayal cut deeper with every revelation. Not only had Rebecca been carrying on an affair for years, but Jason had been actively denying my role in his life. I, who had taught him to ride a bike, helped with his homework, attended every parent-teacher conference and baseball game. I, who had loved him as my own. "There's more," Derek said hesitantly. "They have a joint bank account. Mark has been paying for Jason's tuition." "That's impossible," I said, shaking my head. "I pay his tuition." "I've seen the bills." "You've seen bills," Derek corrected, "but they're not for BU. They've been siphoning money from you for years, Nate. Rebecca's been presenting fake invoices, and you've been writing checks that go straight into their joint account." The room seemed to spin around me. The scope of the deception was breathtaking. This wasn't just an affair. This was a long con, a systematic exploitation of my trust and finances. "What do I do now?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "That depends," Derek replied. "What do you want out of this?" It was a good question. What did I want? Revenge, justice, or just an end to the charade? "I want the truth," I said finally. "And then I want them out of my life." Derek nodded. "Then you need to gather evidence, secure your assets, and confront them on your terms." And that's exactly what I did. Over the next 2 weeks, I moved money to new accounts, documented the financial fraud, and consulted with a divorce attorney. Massachusetts is a no-fault divorce state, but the financial deception would certainly factor into any settlement. The confrontation came sooner than I expected. On a Friday evening in early December, I returned home early from work to find a strange car in our driveway. A sleek, black Mercedes with personalized plates, DRMARK. I sat in my car, watching the house, my heart pounding in my chest. This was it, the moment of truth. I entered quietly, the sound of laughter guiding me to the kitchen. There they were, Sarah, Charles, and a man I recognized from the photo as Mark Thompson. They were cooking dinner together, music playing softly in the background, wine glasses in hand. The perfect little family. Sarah saw me first. The color drained from her face, and the glass slipped from her hand, shattering on the tiled floor. "Nathan," she gasped, "you're home early." "Clearly," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "Am I interrupting something?" Mark Thompson, to his credit, looked uncomfortable. He set down his wine glass and stepped forward, hand extended. "Mark Thompson," he said, "I've heard a lot about you." I ignored his hand. "I bet you have. Tell me, Mark, how long have you been sleeping with my wife?" "Nathan," Rebecca hissed, "this isn't 2 years," I continued. "That's what my sources tell me. 2 years of sneaking around, lying to my face, stealing my money. Does that sound about right?" Jason moved to stand beside his mother. "You don't understand." "Oh, I understand perfectly," I said, turning to him. "I understand that I've raised you since you were 7 years old, paid for everything you've ever needed or wanted, loved you like a son, and this is how you repay me, by conspiring behind my back, pretending this man is your father, and helping your mother defraud me of thousands of dollars." "It's not like that," Rebecca insisted. "Mark and we have a history. He's Jason's biological father." The revelation hit me like a physical blow. "What?" "I was going to tell you," she continued, tears welling in her eyes, "when the time was right. Mark and I were together before you and I met. He's Jason's real father." I looked at Jason, really looked at him, and suddenly the resemblance was obvious. The same strong jaw, the same deep-set eyes. How had I not seen it before? "His biological father has been dead since Jason was 5, I said, recalling the story Rebecca had told me when we first met. "Car accident in Providence. That's what you told me." "I lied," Rebecca admitted. "Mark and I were young. It didn't work out. He wasn't ready for a family, but he came back into our lives 2 years ago. And things changed. So the past 12 years of my life have been based on a lie," I said, the reality of the situation crashing down on me. "You lied about Jason's father. You've been cheating on me. You've been stealing from me. Tell me, Rebecca, was any of it real? Did you ever love me at all?" "Of course I did," she insisted, stepping toward me. "I do love you, Nathan. It's just complicated." "No, it's not complicated," I corrected her. "It's actually very simple. You're a liar and a thief, and I want you out of my house, both of you." "You can't just throw us out," Jason protested. "We live here too." "Actually, I can," I replied. "The house is in my name. You have until morning to pack your things and leave. Anything left behind will be considered abandoned property and disposed of accordingly." "Oh, what, Nathan, please," Rebecca begged, tears now streaming down her face. "Let's talk about this. We can work it out." "There's nothing to work out," I said, my voice cold. "You've made your choice. Now you have to live with it." I turned to Mark, who had been watching the exchange in silence. "Congratulations, Doc. They're all yours now. I hope you're ready for what you're getting. A woman who lies as easily as she breathes, and a boy who's been taught that loyalty means nothing." "Now wait just a minute," Mark began, but I cut him off. "No, you wait. For 2 years you've been coming into my home, sleeping with my wife, playing daddy to the boy I raised. You don't get to say anything to me. You don't get to defend yourself or them. You get to leave my property right now before I call the police and have you removed." To my surprise, Mark nodded. "I understand you're upset. You have every right to be. I'll go." He turned to Rebecca. "Call me later." After he left, an uncomfortable silence filled the kitchen. Rebecca was crying silently, and Jason looked both angry and afraid. "I gave you everything," I said, the anger giving way to a profound sadness. "Both of you. And this is how you repay me." "It's not that simple," Jason said, his voice small. "Mark is my real dad. I have a right to know him. Yes, you do, I agreed. But you didn't have a right to lie to me, to pretend I didn't matter, to help your mother steal from me. You had options, Jason. You could have talked to me, told me the truth. Instead, you chose deception. Like you wouldn't have freaked out, he scoffed. You're so controlling. Controlling, I repeated, incredulous. I paid for your private school. I bought you your first car. I've funded every sport, every hobby, every whim you've ever had. That's not control, Jason. That's love. If you loved us, you wouldn't be throwing us out, Rebecca interjected. If you loved me, you wouldn't have spent 2 years lying to my face, I countered. You made your bed, Rebecca. Now you get to lie in it, just not in my house. I left them standing in the kitchen and went upstairs to the guest bedroom, where I had been sleeping since discovering the affair. I heard them talking downstairs, Rebecca's sobs occasionally piercing the murmur of their voices. Eventually, I heard the front door open and close, and then silence. I didn't sleep that night. I sat by the window, watching the snow fall gently on the streets of Beacon Hill, wondering how my life had come to this point. 12 years with a woman who had built our relationship on a foundation of lies. 12 years loving a boy who, it turned out, had a father who wanted to be in his life. I felt like a fool, but also strangely liberated. The truth, as painful as it was, had set me free from a relationship that had been poisoned from the start. The next morning, I heard movement in the house. Rebecca and Jason were packing, their footsteps heavy on the stairs as they carried boxes and suitcases. I remained in the guest room, unwilling to face them again. Around noon, there was a knock on the door. Nathan, Rebecca's voice tentative. We're leaving now. I didn't respond. I know you don't believe me, she continued, but I did love you. I still do. It's just, Mark is Jason's father. He has a right to be in his life. Still, I said nothing. I've left the house keys on the kitchen counter, she said after a moment, and I'm sorry for everything. Her footsteps retreated down the hall, and a few minutes later, I heard the front door close for the final time. I waited another hour before venturing downstairs. The house felt different, emptier, but somehow lighter too. In the kitchen, as promised, were Rebecca's keys. Beside them was an envelope with my name on it. Inside was a letter. Nathan, by the time you read this, we will be gone. I know you hate me right now, and you have every right to. What I did was unforgivable, and I won't insult you by asking for forgiveness. The truth is, I never planned for any of this to happen. When Mark came back into our lives, it was supposed to be just for Charles's sake. But old feelings resurfaced, and before I knew it, we were caught up in something I couldn't control. That doesn't excuse what I did. Nothing could. I betrayed your trust in the worst possible way, and for that, I am truly sorry. You were a good husband and an even better stepfather to Charles. He may not show it now, but your influence on him has been profound. You taught him values that Mark and I could never instill on our own. I know this doesn't change anything, but I wanted you to know that the past 12 years weren't a complete lie. I did love you in my way. You gave me stability when I needed it most, and I will always be grateful for that. I've left all the financial documents on the desk in your office. You'll see that I've transferred back all the money that we took. It doesn't make up for the deception, but it's a start. I hope that someday when the pain is lessened, you might find it in your heart to remember the good times we had. And maybe, just maybe, you could find a way to stay in Charles's life. He needs you, even if he doesn't realize it yet. Goodbye, Brian. I wish you all the happiness you deserve. Sarah. I read the letter twice, then crumpled it in my fist. The audacity of her to ask me to stay in Jason's life after what they had done was breathtaking. And returning the stolen money didn't erase the betrayal, it just confirmed it. I went to my office and found, as she had said, a stack of financial documents, bank statements showing transfers back into my accounts, a confession essentially of their financial fraud. I called my lawyer immediately. This changes things, he said after I explained about the letter and the return money. It's an admission of guilt. We can use this if you decide to press charges. I don't want to press charges, I said, surprising myself. I just want this to be over. Understood, Haram, he replied. I'll draw up the divorce papers immediately. Given the circumstances, we should be able to expedite the process. True to his word, The divorce was finalized in record time. Rebecca didn't contest anything, didn't ask for alimony or a share of the house. She simply signed the papers and disappeared from my life. Jason was a different story. 3 months after they left, he showed up at my door looking thinner and more subdued than I remembered. "Can I come in?" he asked, his voice uncertain. I hesitated, then stepped aside. He walked into the house, looking around as if seeing it for the first time. "You redecorated," he observed. The floral prints and pastel colors that Rebecca had favored were gone, replaced by more masculine tones. "Needed a change," I said simply. "Why are you here, Jason?" He sat on the couch, hands clasped between his knees. "I fucked up," he said. "I know that. What we did to you, what I did to you, it was wrong." "Yes," I agreed. "It was." "Mark isn't what I thought he would be," Jason continued. "He's controlling. Everything has to be his way. And Mom, she's different with him, smaller somehow." I didn't respond. It wasn't my place to criticize Mark or Rebecca to Jason. Despite everything, he was still a young man trying to navigate a complex situation. "I missed a semester," he admitted. "Couldn't focus on school with everything that was happening. And now I can't go back. Mark says if I'm not going to take it seriously, he's not going to waste his money." "That's unfortunate," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "What are you planning to do?" "I don't know," he said, looking up at me with eyes that reminded me too much of his mother. "I thought maybe you could help me." The request hung in the air between us, bold in its presumption. After everything that had happened, everything they had put me through, he still expected me to step in and fix things. "No," I said simply. "No," he repeated as if he couldn't believe what he was hearing. "No, Jason, I'm not going to help you. Not this time. Not anymore." "But you always said—" "That was before," I cut him off. "Before you lied to me. Before you helped your mother steal from me. Before you denied my place in your life." "I was confused," he protested. "Mark showed up and suddenly I had this biological father who wanted to be in my life. What was I supposed to do?" "You were supposed to be honest," I said. "You were supposed to come to me, tell me what was happening, give me a chance to understand. Instead, you chose deception. You chose to hurt me intentionally." "I'm sorry," he said, and for the first time I believed him. "I really am. I know it doesn't change anything, but I am." "You're right," I agreed. "It doesn't change anything. You made your choice, Jason. You chose Mark. Now you have to live with that decision." "So that's it?" he asked, his voice rising. 12 years as my dad, and you're just done. Just like that." "I wasn't your dad," I reminded him gently. "That's what you and your mother made very clear." "I was just the guy paying the bills." He flinched as if I'd struck him. "That's not true," he insisted. "You were more than that. You know you were." "Maybe," I conceded, "but it doesn't matter now. You're an adult, Jason. You made adult choices, and now you have to face adult consequences." "What am I supposed to do?" he asked, his voice breaking. "That's not my problem anymore," I said, standing up. "I think it's time for you to leave." He looked at me for a long moment, then nodded and stood. At the door, he turned back. "I really am sorry, Nathan. For everything." "I know," I said. "So am I." After he left, I poured myself a drink and sat in the quiet of the house. I felt a strange mix of emotions. Sadness for the boy I had loved, relief at having stood my ground, and an unexpected sense of closure. Life went on. I threw myself into my work, made partner at the firm, and eventually started dating again. The women I met were lovely, accomplished, but something held me back from getting too involved. The scars of betrayal ran deep. A year and a half after Sarah and Charles left, I received a letter from a hospital in New Hampshire. Mark Thompson had suffered a massive heart attack and died on the operating table. The irony of a cardiologist dying from heart failure wasn't lost on me. I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no vindication, just a hollow acknowledgement of another chapter closing. 2 weeks later, my doorbell rang. Sarah stood on my porch looking older than her years. Behind her was Charles, his face solemn. "Brian," she said, her voice wavering. "May we come in?" "Why?" I asked, making no move to open the door wider. "We need to talk," she said. "Please." Against my better judgment, I let them in. They sat in the living room, awkward and uncertain, as I remained standing. Mark is dead, Rebecca began. I know, I replied. I received a letter from the hospital. My condolences. Thank you, she said, though we both knew my words were empty. The thing is, we're in a bit of a situation. And that concerns me how? I asked, my voice cool. Mom, don't, Jason interjected. This was a mistake. We shouldn't have come here. We have nowhere else to go, Rebecca said, ignoring him. Mark. He wasn't as financially stable as he appeared. There were gambling debts, loans, the house is being foreclosed on, and we don't have anywhere to go. The audacity was breathtaking. After everything they had done, they had the nerve to come back and ask for help. I see, I said slowly. And you thought, what? That I would welcome you back with open arms, that I would save you from the consequences of your own actions once again. We don't expect that, Jason said quickly. We needed a place to stay while we figure things out, just for a little while. No, I said, the word final and unequivocal. That's not going to happen. Nathan, please, Rebecca begged. We have nowhere else to go, no one else to turn to. That's not my problem, I replied, echoing the words I had said to Jason months earlier. You made your choice, Rebecca. Both of you did. Now you have to live with it. After everything we've been through together, she tried, tears welling in her eyes. All those years of lies, I cut her off. All those years of manipulation and deceit. Do you really think you can come back here and appeal to my sentimentality, that somehow I've forgotten what you did? People make mistakes, she insisted. Terrible, unforgivable mistakes. But we're still family. No, I corrected her. We're not. We never were. Not really. You made sure of that when you built our relationship on a foundation of lies. Jason stood up suddenly. This was a mistake, he said to his mother. I told you he wouldn't help us. He's too bitter, too angry. Bitter, I repeated, a harsh laugh escaping me. You think this is about bitterness? This is about respect, Jason. Self-respect. Something you and your mother seem to lack entirely. Let's go, Mom, Jason said, ignoring me. We'll figure something out. Rebecca stood slowly, her eyes never leaving my face. I really did love you, Nathan, she said softly, in my own way. Your way wasn't enough, I replied. It never was. After they left, I sat in the silence of my home, expecting to feel something, vindication, perhaps, or closure. But there was only a profound emptiness, a hollowness where anger had once burned hot and bright. Time continued its relentless march forward. I heard through mutual friends that Rebecca had moved to a small apartment in a less desirable part of town, and that Jason had joined the army, seeking structure and purpose that had been lacking in his life. As for me, I eventually sold the house in Beacon Hill. Too many memories haunted its rooms. I bought a sleek condo downtown, closer to my office, with panoramic views of the city I loved. I dated occasionally but kept my relationships casual. The scars of betrayal had taught me caution. 3 years after Rebecca and Jason's final visit, I met Allison at a charity event for the Boston Children's Hospital. She was a pediatric surgeon, brilliant and kind, with a wry sense of humor that caught me off guard. We started slowly, coffee, then dinner, then weekend excursions to the Cape. Allison had been married before, to a fellow doctor who had died in a car accident. She had no children, no complicated family dynamics, just a straightforward honesty that was refreshing after years of deception. You've been hurt before, she observed one night as we shared a bottle of wine on my balcony. Badly. Is it that obvious? I asked. Only to someone who's been hurt too, she replied. It's in the way you hold back, the way you question kindness, as if you're waiting for the other shoe to drop. I was with someone for 12 years, I admitted. She betrayed me in every way imaginable. I'm sorry, Allison said, and I could tell she meant it. That's a long time to build a life with someone, only to have it torn apart. It was, I agreed, but I've made peace with it. Or I'm trying to, at least. Allison reached across the table and took my hand. For what it's worth, I'm not her. I don't have any secrets, no hidden agendas. What you see is what you get. That's worth a lot, I told her, squeezing her hand. Our relationship deepened over the next year. Allison moved into my condo, filling it with warmth and laughter that had been missing for too long. We talked about marriage, about a future together, and for the first time in years, I allowed myself to hope. And then, on a crisp autumn day, as we walked through the public garden, we ran into them. Rebecca and Jason, walking arm in arm, looking older but somehow lighter than the last time I'd seen them. They spotted us first. I saw the recognition flash across Rebecca's face, followed by uncertainty. Jason's expression was harder to read, a mix of embarrassment and something that might have been regret. "Nathan," Rebecca said, coming to a stop a few feet away. "It's been a while." "Yes," I agreed, my arm tightening around Allison's waist. "It has." An awkward silence fell over us, broken only by the sound of children playing nearby. "You look well," Rebecca offered. "Thank you," I replied. "So do you." Jason cleared his throat. "I'm out of the Army now," he said, as if I had asked. "Going to college on the GI Bill, business major." "Congratulations," I said genuinely. "That's great." Another silence, heavier this time. "Well, we should go," Rebecca said finally. "It was nice seeing you, Nathan." "I'm glad you're doing well." "You too, Rebecca," I said, and was surprised to find I meant it. As they walked away, Allison looked at me with curiosity. "Who was that?" "My past," I said simply, "a chapter that's closed now." And it was true. Seeing them had stirred no great emotion, no surge of anger or resentment. They were just people I used to know, characters in a story that no longer defined me. That night, as Allison slept beside me, I thought about the strange twists and turns of life. How the things we think will destroy us often lead us to where we're meant to be. The betrayal that had nearly broken me had also set me free. From a relationship built on lies, from a role that was never truly mine, from a life that was more illusion than reality. I had lost a wife who was never really mine, a son who had another father, a life that was constructed on a foundation of deceit. But in that loss, I had found something more valuable, the truth and the strength to build something new from the ashes of what had been destroyed. The next morning, I asked Allison to marry me. 6 months later, we stood on a beach in Hawaii, exchanging vows as the sun set over the Pacific. It was simple, honest, true, everything my life with Rebecca had not been. 2 years into our marriage, Allison gave birth to our daughter, Emily. Holding her in my arms, feeling the perfect weight of her tiny body, I finally understood what it meant to be a father. Not a substitute, not a stand-in, but the real thing. Life has a way of coming full circle. Last month, I received a letter from Charles. He's married now with a son of his own. The letter was brief but sincere. "Brian, I've thought about writing this letter for years, never sure if it would be welcome. I hope it is. I want to thank you for the years you spent raising me. I was too young, too selfish to appreciate what you gave me then. But now that I have a son of my own, I understand better. You showed me what it means to be a man of integrity, even when I was doing my best to reject those lessons. What my mother and I did to you was unforgivable. I know that. I'm not asking for forgiveness or for a place in your life again. I just wanted you to know that the values you tried to instill in me, honesty, responsibility, respect, they did take root eventually. It just took me a long time to recognize their worth. I hope you're well. I hope you found happiness. You deserve it more than anyone I know. Charles." I read the letter several times, my emotions a complex mix of pride, regret, and a strange, unexpected peace. I showed it to Allison that night after Emily was asleep. "Are you going to respond?" she asked. I thought about all the water under the bridge, all the hurt and betrayal, but also about the boy I had loved as my own for so many years. "Yep," I decided, "I think I will." I sat down and wrote back to Charles, not to absolve him or Sarah of what they had done, not to reopen old wounds, but to acknowledge the growth he had shown, the man he had become despite the turbulent example set by his parents. In the end, the greatest revenge wasn't in holding on to bitterness or in watching them suffer the consequences of their actions. It was in moving forward, in building a life of truth and love, in finding happiness despite the betrayal that had nearly destroyed me. Sarah and Mark had their karma, a relationship built on deceit that ultimately left them with nothing. Charles had his, years of struggling to find his place in the world, to understand what true integrity meant. And I had mine, a loving wife, a beautiful daughter, and a peace that comes from knowing that even in our darkest moments, we have the power to choose how our story continues. The betrayal that once defined me is now just a chapter in a much longer, much happier story. A story that continues to unfold, page by page, day by day, in the life I have built from the ashes of what was lost. In the end, I learned that the truth, however painful, is always the beginning of healing, and that sometimes the greatest blessings come disguised as our deepest wounds.